full broadcast flake floors are becoming a very, very popular option for do-it-yourselfers. Their main application is in garage floors. However, we are seeing a trend where these flake floors are being used in different areas of the home and business as well. They're really easy to install, they're super forgiving, and they come in a variety of decorative options. So today we're going to show you all of the steps necessary in order to install one of these full broadcast flake floors. So of course, as with any epoxy coating system, we have to start with proper prep. Now we've already gone ahead and used our quick patch and fixed any of the cracks that were visible in this floor. And now we're going to grind the surface, and we're going to do it using a floor machine with one of our Velcro backed holders, using 6 of our diamond grinding pucks that are available on the website. This is a great tool for doing smaller type projects, especially for do-it-yourselfers. So we'll go ahead and get this set up. We'll hook it up to our shop vac, and then we're going to go ahead and grind the surface to open up the pores of the concrete, so that way the epoxy will absorb in properly. So we'll go ahead and get started with that. Alright, so now that we got our surface all ready, it's time to install the epoxy. So I'm going to go ahead and put this down. The installation is pretty much the same as it is with any other epoxy coating. I'm going to pour it out in some ribbons here in this first section, and then I'm going to squeegee it, and then we're going to back roll it. All right, so now we'll go ahead and get our shoes on. And so we'll squeegee it, and then we'll give it a nice back roll. Putting this down at the rate of about 120 square feet a gallon. So I've got some marks on the wall so I know where each section is. It'll kind of guide me. So I make sure that I'm getting the coverage that I'm looking for and the coverage that I need in order to be able to broadcast the flakes properly. All right, so now the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take my small roller and I'm going to hit all of the edges. I left a little bit close to the edge when I was squeegeeing, so I would have some in order to roll. Okay, hit it one more time here. Make sure we get everything right into the corners. And you'll notice that I did not put any blue tape on the bottom of the walls here because I knew that the customer was going to have their contractor add the baseboards later after we were done with the floors, so that way we could get right up against the wall and give us a nice clean finish when the baseboards go on. All right, so we'll take our 18-inch roller and we'll just now even everything out. Super quick with the 18-inch roller. We recommend 18-inch rollers for all of our coatings applications. It's really just the professional way to do it. It's so much faster. It puts the coatings on so much more evenly. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and start our flake broadcast. We're using 1/4-inch flake. And we're going to start up here on this end. And we're going to try to broadcast them up into the air like it's raining or snowing, as opposed to throwing them down into the ground. So we just start grabbing handfuls. And just simple as that, we just work our way across the room. Now, I'm not going to get 100% coverage on this first pass. In fact, I like to go a little bit lighter to start because then it just gives the flakes just a few minutes to absorb into the epoxy. And then I can see real easily where any of my moist spots are that need more flake. All right, so we got plenty of flakes on hand. We'll go grab another half bucket. All right, so you can see right here is an area where we're real light on flake. You can see so much of the gray epoxy coming through. So that's why I like to allow the first light coat to kind of settle, and then I can start seeing all of the wet spots that are coming up, and it's very easy for me to go back in and broadcast another light coat, and make sure we have 100% coverage. All right, so this is what your broadcast floor should look like when you're complete. There should be no wet spots anywhere, no signs of any of the moist epoxy coming through. That's why it's called 100% broadcast, because we are covering 100% of the epoxy underneath. So we'll go ahead and let everything dry tonight. We'll come back in the morning. We have a couple of steps left before the floor is complete, and we'll show you how it's done. All right, so here we are the next morning at our full broadcast flake floor. The floor is totally dry, and we're ready to move on to the next step. Now you remember that we did a full broadcast. We oversaturated the floor with flakes to make sure that we had no bare spots anywhere. And because of that, we have a lot of loose flake that's sitting on the surface. So what we need to do now is remove all of those loose flakes, and then we'll do a scraping. Okay, so there's no real right or wrong way to do this next couple of steps. I prefer to blow off all of the loose flake into one end of the room using some type of a blower. Now, you can use a shop vac like this. If you put the hose in the opposite port, it will actually turn into a blower, but you can use any type of leaf blower that you have at your disposal. Some people choose to scrape the floor at this stage and then blow it all off. I like to blow all the loose flake off first and see what I have underneath, and then I can really gauge the amount of scraping that I need to do. So that's what I'm going to do now, is I'm going to blow it all back into one pile. I'll pick up the loose flakes, and then we'll move into the scraping. Okay, so we got all of our loose flake blown over to this side of the room. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take this bag here, and I'm going to fill it up with this flake. The reason that I'm doing that is because I'm going to want to save some of this, because if something were ever to happen to this floor, maybe a little damage to a spot because of something heavy dropping on it or whatever it might be, and we ever had to come in here and redo a little tiny section, do a tiny little bit of a patch, then I have all the flake that's going to match the floor. I don't have to go and buy any new stuff. So I'll fill this up. That's plenty right there. And we'll just save this in the garage, and we'll always have it in case we ever had to do any type of repair on the floor. All right, so now as for the rest of the flake, I'm going to just pick it up, and I mean, we could just vacuum this up or what have you, but I have this tool right here. So as you can see, a lot of flake remains on the surface of these floors, which is exactly what we want to see the next day when we come in to do this. That way we know we got really, really nice coverage. All right, so now the next step is to scrape the floor. And the reason why we're going to scrape the floor is because as the flakes fall into the wet epoxy, some of them end up on edge as far as instead of being flat. We want to make sure that we knock off all of those edges or the tips of the flakes that are standing up. We want this nice and smooth, so that way when we put on our top coat, we end up with a really nice smooth floor with no little bits of flake sticking up. So we use a tool like this. Now this is, I would say, more of a professional one. If you were a contractor doing this every day, you might consider investing in one of these. But you can use any type of floor scraper, not a razor blade scraper, but a floor scraper, even like a paint scraper. You could actually do this process by hand if you wanted to on a two-car garage. But they sell all kinds of different floor type scrapers at Home Depot and Lowe's, these big box stores. But nothing fancy. And what we're going to do is we're basically going to take this, and without using any pressure, we're just going to slide this along the floor, just like that. And you'll see as we do that, little bits of the flake will pop up because that's the ones that are sticking up on edge, and we're knocking those off flat. So we're not applying pressure. If you apply a lot of pressure, you'll find that you'll actually start shaving down the flakes, and you'll change the size of them. So we want to keep these nice 1/4 inch size flakes, but we just want to knock off the top. So we'll do that on the whole floor, and then we'll give it a nice vacuum in preparation for our top coat. Okay, so we got all of our scraping done. We vacuumed up thoroughly. There's really no remnants of any loose flake left on the floor. We vacuumed it 3 times to make sure that we got everything up. Now, as we apply our top coat, you are going to still have a few loose flakes here or there because it's almost impossible to get every single piece of flake cleaned up. And that's okay, it'll just get locked into the top coat. But the object here is to get up 99.9% of everything that we've scraped and that is loose on the floor. And we're ready to head to the top coat now. But I noticed something on the floor here that we have an opportunity to correct. If you come over here, I'm going to show you. What we have here is a spot over on the floor. Now, it might be a little bit hard to see in the camera, but right here, in this area right here, it is just a little bit bare. I'm seeing just a little bit too much of the epoxy showing through. That might be a little bit better there. And so what I want to do is I'm going to add just a few more flakes to this area into the top coat. And the top coat will then lock them in place. And that will just make sure that that spot doesn't stand out. Chances are nobody else would notice it in the whole scheme of things, but I notice it, and so I have a chance to correct it now. We have a lot of flake left over that we scraped up, so we'll just sprinkle some in there when we get to it. But for now, let's go mix up the top coat and apply it. All right, so there are a couple choices for our top coat. We could go with a clear 100% solids epoxy, or depending on your application and different variables, you might want to go with our polyaspartic as the top coat. For this particular project, we're going to go with our EPE 100 clear epoxy. Now, for this to dry and cure clear, we're going to put it down thin, which is what we want to do anyway. So we're going to go at about 120 to 150 square feet per gallon. And what we're going to do is we're going to simply pour a bead of it here, just like that. I'm going to get my spike shoes on. All right, and then with a window squeegee, the difference between a window squeegee and the normal squeegees that we use for applying epoxy is that this will put it down ultra thin. It's a window squeegee. You can get this at any of the big box stores or anywhere, very inexpensive. It's got a much thinner blade, it's very light, and this will allow us to put it down very thin because we're not trying to encapsulate all of the flake, we're just trying to coat them, cover them. So there will still be that little bit of texture from the flake, and these window squeegees do a really nice job of that, whether it be putting down a polyaspartic or the epoxy that we're using. So very simply, just get it started here. Pulling some right along our wall, making sure we got everything covered. All right, and then we can simply just pull it back like this. So what we're doing is we're coating everything, we're locking everything in place, but this is allowing us to put it down very thin. So we'll get some down this wall here, just like that, and then we'll just keep pulling it. Now you notice that we're letting it sit in the bucket while we do this, and that's okay for a short period of time. So we do need to work fairly quickly. It's best to mix up small batches of your top coat and put them down. I'll add a little more here. All right, and now I'm going to start moving a little bit quicker because we know that the clock is ticking on our material here. So you can see that we're able to pull it very thin. So it's filling in everything, but it's not really encapsulating it so that we have a perfectly smooth surface. Okay, now, if you're really, really, really good with the squeegee, you don't even need to back roll the floor. I always like to do it anyway because it just, if there's a little puddle or anywhere that I missed, we're going to back roll this, we're going to get rid of that, and we're going to give us a nice even floor. So just like we would any epoxy coating, we're going to start with our edge. Just run this thing right down the edge. Make sure we have full coverage, no puddles. Everything gets locked into place. And again, this is going to be real quick, because again, it's just to see if we've missed any little puddles or anything. So I'm actually just going side to side all the way across the room here. So you see how fast this goes when you use the 18-inch rollers. So again, always use 18-inch rollers when you're doing any coatings project. You'll find them under the tools category of the website, and we can ship them to you right along with the rest of your product, and you'll have everything you need to do a professional installation on your project. Okay, real quick. You remember I said that there was a little spot that I wasn't happy with. It was just a little bit light on flake and a little bit too much of the gray base coat was showing through. You might even be able to see it, the camera picking it up. It looks just a little bit different there, almost like a little bit of a shadow mark. That's actually because of that gray epoxy. So I'm going to show you how to fix that real quick and easy. All right, so I have some of the flake in my hand, okay? And we're going to sprinkle just a little tiny bit, not a lot, just a little tiny bit. So literally just a few, and you can see we're adding just a little bit more color to this area. Just a little bit's all that's needed. Okay, so that looks much better. Now what we're going to do is we're going to come with our little roller and just lightly roll over top of it to put epoxy on top of those flakes, and then as they dry, they'll kind of just all fuse together. We know that our roller here has epoxy on it already, so we're just kind of very lightly, I'm not putting any pressure, it's just the weight of the roller going on top. It's wetting the flake, and then that'll stay right in place. Problem solved. All right, so we poured out our product. We're running at about 150 square feet a gallon or so. We squeegeed it, we've back rolled it, we fixed our little spot over here, and now we're ready to carry on and get the second half done. So I'm going to go mix up the next batch of epoxy, and then we're just going to repeat the whole process. So we get asked a lot, how long can this epoxy stay in the bucket? We want to get it out pretty quick. So we're going to use about 15 minutes from the time we mix it to the time we've emptied out the bucket. So it kind of gives you an idea of the pace that you need to go at in order to be able to use this epoxy without it setting up in the bucket. If it kicks off, it means it's been in the bucket too long. So use about 15 minutes. It's always nice to have a helper, one person pouring, one person squeegeeing, and it just helps to make the job go quicker. And then the other thing is you can just always mix smaller batches instead of mixing a whole kit. All right, so here we are. Our project is completed. We started yesterday. We did all of our prep. We fixed some cracks that we had in the surface. We put down our body coat of epoxy, the EPE 200 in a gray. We broadcast our flakes. We came back today. We scraped, we vacuumed, and then we put on our EPE 100 top coat. And you can see what an amazing transformation this was to this garage floor. This is going to give the owner a long, long, long life floor here that they can use for whatever they choose to use it for. If you have any other questions about our products or about this system in particular, you can contact us through our website at www.epoxyplus.com. But I hope that this video gives you some confidence that you too can install one of these full broadcast flake floors yourself.